In this lecture, we're going to look at C++ functions and how they help us stay organized and promote code reuse in our C++ projects. Here we are in our IDE, and we're going to start a new project to show off functions. New file or project, C++ application. We call it 19 functions. We store it in the usual location. Hit next, choose the kit, and generate our project. We run it to see if there's no problem. And no problem. By now you may know that I like my programs to greet me, so I'm going to tell it to tell me hi. Okay, hello Daniel. But I don't want to keep doing it here. I want to put this code in a function so that I can call it multiple times without having to type it here. The way I'm going to do that, I'm going to go on top here, top of the function, and say void, and I call it say hi. Okay, and I am going to take this piece of code here, cut it out, and put it in the function here. This is a C++ function. So the way you call it whatever you would do the normal thing you're doing in the function. And in this case, it is in the main function here. We tell it to say hi to us. And you call it by giving the name of the function, putting the parentheses and a semicolon to end the line. And if we run it, it's going to say hello Daniel. Okay, so this is our function and we call it. To show that we can reuse the same piece of code without actually writing it again, let's call this function multiple times. So we're going to call it 3 times. And it should say hello Daniel 3 times. Now that you've seen the function working, I'd like to explain a bit about it. C++ functions have a signature that is this thing here. And what is it? It has 3 components really. It has the return type for the function. It has a function name. And the parameters of the function. We name that function parameters. Okay, so this is what we call a signature for the function. The return type, which is what the function gives you back when it finishes doing whatever it is it's doing. We have the function name that we're going to use to call it, and we have the parameters that we can pass in to let the function work on our data. By now you might be saying, I see the return type of this function, that's okay. I see the name of the function, that's fine. But where are the parameters for this function? Well, this function has no parameters, and when the function has no parameters, you say it like this, with nothing inside the parentheses, and this is totally fine. To show a more regular function, however, we're going to write a function that returns the sum of 2 integers. Let's do that. So we define it here. The function is going to return an integer because it's going to give us an integer back when it's finished adding the 2 numbers. We're going to call it summation, and it's going to work on 2 integers, which are a and b. What the function is going to do in the body is really to return the sum, and we're going to do it like this. And after we have the function, we can now call it. We can get rid of these 2 instances of say hi and see out the sum of 3 and 7 is, and call our function 3 and 7. Okay. Why are we able to do this? We are able to do this because this method returns something. And it is this return value that we are going to output here. And if our function is working correctly, we should output 10 in here. So let's try the application. The sum of 3 and 7 is 10. Our function seems to be working. One thing I want to emphasize right now is that we can have function overrides. And an override of a function is a function that has the same name as the first function. For example, we can define another function that works on floats, okay? A float B. And it's going to be exactly the same thing as this one. Let's put some spaces here to make it more readable. And if you call it with, for example, 3.3, 7.2, so let's see what we get. Okay, now that we run it, we see an error here that it doesn't know what we are passing. It can be confused as a double value because when you call with a float value, you have to put an F to kind of indicate that this is a float value that you are passing in. So let's run the application again, and this time it should run and show a 10.5. So how does our compiler know which function to call from this? It looks at the parameters and it tries to match it to the closest matching function in here. For example, we are passing in floats, so a function that takes float parameters should be a good fit for this. Okay, so let's define another function for doubles. Why not? Double A, double B, return A plus B. Okay, so if we take off these F's, we are passing in double values, and if we run the application, we shouldn't have any problem anymore. 10.5. Okay, now we should change this too. So 3.3, 7.2 is 10.5. Okay, this covers what we set out to do in this lecture. In the next one, we're going to look at classes. I'll see you there.